Picture this, if you will. You're a logistics company operating in the UK pre-2016. The vote obviously comes up. You don't say anything because, well, you're a British business and, well, British businesses don't really speak out about politics. That's just a thing we have in the UK, although some do. And, there is a bit, but, you're in the logistics industry. You move stuff from A to B. You don't really care about the day-to-day politics. And then, of course, Brexit comes along. And some, of course, maybe even some of your drivers are celebrating the fact, promoting the idea to leave the EU as a good thing. But you realize, well, that's a bad thing. And in some cases we saw in the logistics industry, many of the higher ups did implore their employees and their drivers to vote to remain in 2016. And of course, the vote comes in, you vote to leave, you know the disaster that's going to happen. Time rolls on, there's still no idea what checks and balances there are going to be. It's a complete nightmare. You don't know what's going to happen. And of course, finally, you get the idea, or you hear from number 10 that Boris has finally gone and done a deal. But of course, you look at it and you realize, well, that's going to increase the cost of moving stuff from A to B exponentially, even though Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers promised that there would be no changes to this type of border whatsoever, even proclaiming in the very speech that he announced his deal that there would be free trade. Of course, that didn't happen. And then along comes the second disaster, the pandemic, where not only due to Brexit, but of course the pandemic has now lost you a lot of your workforce, a lot of that workforce that was, well, foreign and from the EU, because, well, it was really convenient to be able to sort of do that and have that freedom of movement. But of course, now, not so. And you're in a bit of a pickle. The logistics industry has not dropped. The demand is always very high for logistical purposes. You've come through a pandemic struggling, trying to solve these logistical issues. And now Brexit is causing even more trouble with the carnets, paperwork, the border crossings, the queues at Dover. It's becoming an even more nightmare. And none of this is your fault. And then all of a sudden, the government today turns around and says, okay, guys, you've got 2 years to try and solve these huge problems that we caused, by the way. And if you don't, we're going to start taxing you. That is today the exact position that the logistics industry finds itself in today. So let's go diving in to find out what new plan the government has now come up and unfortunately is going to happen to logistics industry, which they are probably not going to be too happy about. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and one donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way as well. So, on with the story. This comes from The Guardian with the title of Improve Facilities for HGV Drivers or Face New Tax, MPs Tell Freight Sector. The road haulage industry should be given a 2-year deadline to upgrade facilities for lorry drivers with clean showers, healthy food, and spaces for female drivers, or face a new tax, ministers have been told. On Wednesday, a cross-party group of MPs called for the logistics industry to, quote, get its house in order by improving the overnight facilities for drivers and providing new training routes to recruit more truckers from diverse backgrounds. It comes as the sector struggles for a lack of heavy good vehicles drivers, leading to regular fuel shortages at petrol pumps and even empty shelves in supermarkets. And again, this is not the logistics company's fault. They are having to deal with problems that have been caused by the government. And yeah, some of this stuff I do agree with, like some of the guys, sort out the facilities and things like that. But this is once again an area where the government should be looking in and going, okay, how can we help improve this situation? What can we do to help improve this situation? But The idea of hire more people, it's not that, it's not that increasingly interesting. And as if you've ever seen any recently, certainly with the past like the year or so since this problem has come to light, they've done a lot of interviews with truckers, and a lot of the truckers have basically come out and said, yeah, this is really not um, a vastly popular job. You don't get family time, you don't get a lot of advantages. Unless you're really, really into driving. It's not the best job in the world to really have. So obviously, they're really struggling to recruit at the moment. Last year, the Road Haulage Association, the industry trade body, estimated that there was a shortfall of over 100,000 HGV drivers due to the coronavirus crisis and Brexit. The shortage is now estimated to have decreased to around 65,000. The Commons Transport Select Committee said that if changes are not made within 2 years, the most profitable parts of the sector could face a new tax. And where is that tax going to be passed on to? It's going to be passed on to the customers. So now anyone who is now doing this, well, okay, well, we'll have to increase our prices, making it even more expensive to move stuff. And don't get me wrong, I agree with this stuff, like improving like working conditions for the industry. Great. But these MPs don't seem to realize that it has been the government that has made these changes that they are now facing the biggest problems from. So under the proposed supply chain levy, large supermarkets, oil companies, and online service giants could be forced to pay thousands towards the cost of new facilities for HGV drivers. Again, I'm all for that, but eventually that cost is going to come to the consumers, and it's something that the government should be stepping in and helping them. If you've got 2 years and they're still in the same situation, you can't really say, well, we tried to help you, when you didn't seem to do anything. We urge government to be brave and face the sector, to give its house try and get its house in order, said Hugh Herman, the Conservative chairman of the committee. It said that supply chain levy has worked previously to incentivize reform. If the industry won't deliver change, the government should do so and send them the bill via increased taxes to those who produce and sell and make the most profits. The committee's report, The Road, Freight and Safety Supply Chain, said that they found a key reason that drivers do not stay in the sector long was a lack of high-quality rest facilities. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm for this, but unless the government steps in here, I don't really see them any real change happening here. The report called for the introduction of at least a minimum standards for facilities, including security, clean showers, toilets, healthy food options, and of course services for female drivers. Drivers quoted in the report raised concerns about poor washing facilities at overnight stopping areas, including dirty and vandalized showers. The report of some officials said the stopover services were so bad that drivers preferred to park in laybys overnight, a practice called fly parking, which can lead to fines. The committee said that the industry must do more to encourage women and younger people into HGVs. Women make up as little as 1% of the workforce. The proportion under at least 25 is under 3%, Miriam said. And for too long, this lack of diversity has seen more drivers retiring than has actually been recruited. We've been here before. In the 2016 Transport Committee, it called for action in the haulage sector, but little changed. A lack of diversity is holding expansion back in the workforce. And again, back in 2016, the government did nothing. So, okay, you're going to put this levy on them, you're going to put this tax on them, but what are you going to do to help facilitate that change, to help them out during this time? Doesn't make a lot of sense to sort of do this. Now, don't get me wrong, in favor of those changes, in favor of them sort of doing that, but unless you're going to help them do that, then it's exactly going to be the result of the 2016 report, where, again, no change happened. The committee also called on the road haulage companies to pay for special training needed to drive their HGV. Currently, the cost is covered by the drivers. Again, that will be good as well. Miriam said the added long-term solution lies in moving more freight to rail and water, which again would help massively. But again, in order to do that, you actually have to build rail infrastructure, and our government has not built rail infrastructure. Same for water as well. This will help to decarbonise the sector and will also make it more attractive to drivers who want to operate over shorter distances, drivers who want to see their families at the end of a hard day, rather than facing the antisocial and dangerous nights sleeping in their cabins in the near term. We need better conditions to make moving goods around a safer career choice. I agree with that. I agree with the massive decarbonisation of the sector. Looking again more into rail, but again, you've got to make that investment. HS2, the northern leg, being cut off randomly. It needs that, and it needs to be done at least within the next 5 years, or else the cost to actually build a northern leg of the HS2 is going to be astronomical to it. The Road Haulage Association, which represents commercial and road haulage companies, said that more than 7,000 members said that it broadly welcomed the report and that many of the recommendations were in line with its own request for change. It added, "We appreciate the principles behind the supply chain levy, but we need assurances that this would not result in undue cost pressures." And that's exactly what I've been saying throughout this video. We are concerned that the industry cannot make the necessary changes to avoid the levy in just 2 years when so many of those changes are outside the industry control, which is what we said there. Some of these changes, again, Brexit and the pandemic, have been completely out of their control. And those two are easily the biggest challenges the haulage and logistics industry is currently facing. Out of their control. They can do nothing about that. That is the government doing that. And as we said at the beginning, you're a haulage company, and the government comes to you and basically says, yeah, we know that we've sort of messed all this up, but you need to now get your house in order. Now, I do welcome a lot of the changes that have been made and suggest there, even as does the Road Haulage Association. So it's great. It's in line with our own report of what we want. I'm massively for, again, the decarbonisation, moving stuff to more water and even rail stuff. But again, that infrastructure needs to be built, and the infrastructure is just not being built. So it would be far, far better, I would hope, this committee to push for this infrastructure, for the rail and water infrastructure, not just ports, but maybe even looking at, we've got lots of canals. Do we have a look at those and see what we can do there with those? There's all sorts of possibilities that we can do, but of course, at the end of the day, you need the money. And if the government is not ready to, or at least seriously talk about doing this, then they're never going to seriously invest the money. And of course, they can talk about it all they want, but unless they seriously invest the money, then these things just aren't going to happen. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next.